This tag is based off the assumption that when I read books, I actually finish them. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am taking the finished books tag. I have seen this floating around on the book internet a couple of times, but I actually picked it up from the blogger Stephen Wright. I've been following his blog for ages, I've been following him on Twitter for ages, and when I saw this blog tag pop up, I knew that it was one I wanted to take. I've had kind of a weird time with finishing books lately. There's been a couple that I've DNF'd, there's been a couple that I've struggled to finish, but when I do finish a book, this is what I generally do with it. Question 1 is, do you keep a list of all of the books that you have finished? Yes, but not like a physically written down one. I keep a list of all of the books that I have read on my Storygraph or on my Goodreads pages. And on my Goodreads page, I actually file all of the books on a separate tag, such as read in 2022, read in 2023. I kind of keep them listed by what year I finished them in. It gives me ideas as to how long ago have I read this book, if it's one that I feel like I want to reread, or if I want to go into my reading journal, at what years do I need to kind of look at so that I can think, what time of the year did I read this in, what year at all did I read this in? As I said, I also do keep a reading journal, and that is where I keep all of my ideas of the book that only I am going to see. It's full of spoilers, it's full of my completely unhinged thoughts about what's happening with the characters, with the storyline, the setting, everything. It's a place that I know is for my eyes only, unless I'm showing the page to somebody that I'm discussing the book with. So I can go a little bit spoilery, I can go a little bit more in depth, but I generally wouldn't do that, for example, in a YouTube video or in a blog review or in a Goodreads review. Since 2021, I also started using Cawpile, and I do keep a list of the books that I read there, mainly because I use it for ratings. Question 2 is, what stats do you record? And I kind of keep a track of quite a few of them. In my reading journal, I keep track of the name of the book, the author, the publisher, my start and finish date, what the genre was, and how I read it. I also keep an eye on whether I got it from NetGalley, if I listened to it on Scribd, or if I listened through it through my library app. Of course, with G's Cawpile rating system, you go into it a little bit in depth. So in this Cawpile system, I'm taking a look, for example, of when was the publication year, is it a translated book, and if yes, what was the original language, what language did I read it in, where is the author from, what gender did I identify as. There's a lot of things that I look into there that I don't go into as much detail in my own reading journal. Question 3 is, do you give a star rating? Yes, and I use Cawpile to help me with that. Cawpile has been a really revolutionary tool for my reading. I used to kind of just go on vibes. I used to just say, this feels like a 3-star book. This feels like a 4-star book. This feels like a 5-star book. And because of that, I think I was kind of too liberal with the 5-star ratings that I was giving out. I think I was giving books a 5-star that probably would have only been a 4 or a 3.5. But I started using Cawpile in 2021, and there's a system there that gives you a mark from 1 to 10 based on 7 different aspects of the book: characters, atmosphere, writing, logic, intrigue, plot, and enjoyment. And you give a 1 to 10 rating of that, and then it will give you your average, and that will correspond into the star rating that you're going to give. For the most part, Cawpile is really on point with what I would have given the book without it, but it has given me a little bit more of an in-depth reason as to why I'm giving these books so many stars that I'm giving them. Is it a 5-star book because I couldn't put it down? I was so gripped by the story that I had to pick it back up again, so the intrigue gets 10 points. Is it because the writing was so great that it just flowed so well and it engaged me the whole time, so I gave that 10 points as well? Were the characters really great, really understandable? Even if they were unlikable characters, did I still want to read about them? So that got 10 points. Or were there a couple of things that were great and then there were a couple of things that weren't quite as good as the others? So the fluctuations of points kind of made it a 3-star. Does that make a bit more sense? Since 2022, and as a rule from then, I don't give nonfiction a star rating at all. I don't feel like it's my place to tell somebody your life story is so enthralling, so engaging, but it's only worth a 3-star read for me. I don't feel like I can belittle somebody's experience like that, whether it's an experience of grief or sexual assault or living with HIV or cancer diagnosis or just how they got to the position in life that they are now. It's not something that I feel like I can put any kind of numerical weight onto it. So I've stopped giving nonfiction any kind of a rating at all. Question number 4 is, do you review your books? I used to have a book blog for about 5 or 6 years, But I gave up on that after I got into BookTube. I feel like I just wanted to give more of my energy and more of my time to this platform, to growing myself here, rather than sitting in front of the computer and typing anymore. So I came up with a couple of ways to discuss books and to review them. And one of the ways that I came up with was Books and Brews. A book and brew video is where I sit down with a drink. It could be coffee, it could be tea, it could be alcoholic, it could be non-alcoholic, it can be literally anything. And I'll talk about 3 books that I have read recently or that have a similar theme or have the same color cover. I haven't done a book and a brew video in such a long time. I just haven't found a kind of a connector that I really wanted to talk about, but I'd love to bring the series back. So if you want to see another book and a brew video, give me some 3 books that might fit into different categories and I would absolutely love to read them. I've also recently toyed with the idea of starting monthly wrap-ups. I know that there are loads of booktubers who have made them religiously ever since they started on BookTube, who made them and then dropped off with making them and then came back to it, who made them and who stopped making them altogether. I haven't done any ever, and I don't know if I want to bring it in, but let's see if I give it a try sometime. Question number 5 is, where do you put your books when you have finished reading them? Usually I'll put them on my shelves. But if it's one that I don't want to keep, there's a couple of places that I might go with them. I might bring them to my local library here in Berlin, which has a quite small section of English books and are always kind of looking for more that you can add to it. I might offer them to my dad if it's a book that I think he's going to enjoy, like a thriller or like a kind of a crime book. I might offer it to a couple of my friends who read the same things as me that I think would really enjoy it. Or if none of those avenues have worked, I'll bring them to a local street library. There are loads of those popping up around Germany and especially around Berlin, where I will just bring a bag of books and leave them for their new home. Question number 6 is, how do you pick your next book? I am a notorious mood reader. I make TBRs and then find it really hard to stick to them. I have maybe gotten through 1 or 2 TBRs right from start to finish and read every single book. I tend to just look at my shelf and go, what I'm in the mood for. Am I in the mood for a romance? Am I in the mood for a historical fiction? Am I in the mood for non-fiction? Am I in the mood for something more contemporary? Am I in the mood for something a little bit out of my comfort zone? I'll also kind of have a look as to what my friends are reading, if there's anything that they have read recently that really speaks to me. Sometimes if I do make a TBR, for example, my seasonal TBRs or a TBR for a readathon, I will try my best to stick to it and just go with what is the next book on that list that's really, really standing out to me. But as a whole, I don't generally make TBRs. Question number 7 is, do you have any rituals for when you are finished a book? When I have finished a book, I will update my Goodreads and add it to the read in the specific year that I've read it in. I'll update my story graph, and if it fits into any of the reading challenges that I'm reading, I'll add it to the prompt for that. I'll also update my reading journal, give in the date that I finished the book and write in my last couple of thoughts about the book. And every book that I read in any year, I will save €1 into a virtual jar so that by the end of the year or the start of the next year, I have all of this money to do whatever I please with. It's something that I started doing a couple of years ago, and I found that it kind of pushed me to read a little bit more, especially towards the end of the year if I had an idea as to what I wanted to spend the money on, but I was a little bit short. It would make me kind of read a little bit more to get to it, but also it's just really nice to see that kind of saving start to build up as you get towards the end of the year anyway. Those are my answers to the finished book tag. What do you do when you have finished your latest book? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me the checkmark emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.